I can't do it.
Okay.
We'll do it live.
Okay. No.
We'll do it live. It. Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live. Thing sucks.
Yeah, it does, Bill. Welcome in. It's another edition of the Daily Puck Drop. It's Tuesday, February 11th. We are here every single day, 10 a.m., whether you're watching, listening live, or watching or listening later. Thank you to one and all. You've got a lot of choices at 10 a.m. Make the right choice at 10 a.m. We appreciate all the support. When you're on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel. If you watch it on X, thank you, or Twitter. And if you listen back, you can listen live on the Puck Sports mobile app. We got an iOS app, also Android app there for you. If you don't know that, to you people that listen or watch later, we've got a fancy app that lets you listen live to the show, by the way, in your car, walking your dogs, grocery store, whatever. Put those earbuds in, ignore everybody else, and listen to Puck Sports and the Daily Puck Drop. Also, later you can watch or listen to everything, I should say, on all your favorite podcast platforms, Apple, Spotify, wherever you find your podcasts, and, of course, pucksports.com. Quickly on the rundown, we'll get into a story, if you haven't seen it, about a youth hockey assault here in Seattle at the Seattle Kraken complex. We're going to talk about that one, a little NFL draft news, and an announcement on draft coverage starting next week, that if you're into that, you're going to love it. Also coming up on the show today, Danny B. Kelly, speaking of the NFL draft, from the Ringer. He, of course, hosts many shows, senior writer for the Ringer fantasy football show, covers the NFL, also covers a lot of the NFL draft. So we'll put on our NFL draft hats today with Danny Kelly in about 15 minutes from right now. Then John Canzano, all things sports with John Canzano from johncanzano.com. A lot of college football news, Pac-12 media rights update. We'll talk about college basketball, looking at the teams that left the Pac-12, how they're doing in their new destinations. Do bring up this youth parent assault in the hockey world and get into that discussion. Super Bowl discussion with John there as well. Party etiquette and snow days. I caught up with John earlier today. So that is recorded from this morning because John had stuff to do. But it's a lengthy one. It's a good 40 minutes there with Johnny Cans. We, of course, every single day broadcast from the Puck Sports studios, built by Limbach Lumber. Look at that beautiful sign. Thank you to Gary Rogers Sr. for making that sign. Thank you to Mark and Matt and everybody over there at Limbach Lumber for being the Puck Sports studio sponsor. Again, built by Limbach Lumber. Contractors, they got free deliveries, everything from whole house packages to homeowner DIY projects. Largest stock moldings in the Northwest. Old school service. They've been doing it since 1930. Give Limbach Lumber a call, 206-782-3487. Visit them online at limbachlumber.com. And again, follow on all the social media platforms. If you don't know, Twitter is simply just Puck Sports. Blue Sky there as well if you're into that. Puck_sports on TikTok. And of course, you can find us also on Facebook at Puck Sports, where we put up all of our video clips. Highlights of the show are on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. Also, Puck's Posse, you want to become a member, support all the content we do with the Daily Puck Drop and all of our guests, in addition to receiving bonus content and content that is just for members as well, including Ryan Divish. Baseball season here. Sign up, pucksports.com, top of the page. We'll take you to the link. If you're watching the stream live or later on your screen right now, that QR code, if you take a picture of that, that will take you to the Puck's Posse membership page, $5 a month. Hey, I know I got an email from someone, hey, I'm signing up for a bunch of stuff. And I'm kind of sign up overload. You know, it's overwhelming. I totally get it. I understand. I'm in that boat with you as well. Everybody's asking for a little bit. Everybody's asking for a little bit because it's what they do for a living. So I totally get it. If you have any issues with it, payment, can't afford it, please reach out to me. We'll take care of you. I keep saying we'll take care of you. puck@pucksports.com. But just $5 a month. You get a deal if you sign up there for a year. All right. Before we get Danny Kelly on, I'm going to jump right into this one. and of course, it will be also part of Hey, What the Puck. I don't know if people have seen this yet. I would assume many of you have. I apologize. I can't get the full video up because normally I'm able to get it, but I can't get the full one up. But I'm going to share this video from what happened, I think, last week, and I saw it from Mike Baker. I think Mike used to work at the Seattle Times, and now I think Mike works for the New York Times as well. You can see it's a video of an attack at a 12U hockey game, a rec league hockey game that is at the Seattle Kraken ice complex, by the way. And in the video on the left, and again, for those who are just listening to this, go back and watch the video for yourself. Watch it later. You can see an incident here where you can see that father right here walking over. His own hand. You can see on this video from the other angle where he shoves him down, and that's probably that's the better video, the better angle of it. These two referees had their back turns, and this adult comes in there and shoves him in the back. These referees for this 12U rec league hockey game are teenagers. They are 14 and 13 years of age. This man has been described by police and parent of one of the players, 6'2", 245 pounds. He is lucky to probably be alive today if one of the parents, one of the fathers of these two officials, I probably doubt that they were there, to watch this, didn't go down on the ice and assault him and take him. It really is. Because I know there's a lot of parents probably would have taken this situation in their own hands. This is, I mean, I've seen a lot of videos. I'm just going to leave it up there for people. I want people to watch this over and over and over again. Because this is the type of stuff, man, it just pisses me off that this stuff happens all routinely. It's not just, this isn't a hockey thing. This happens in baseball. This happens in football, in all youth sports. And I don't think it's something that's a new thing. Because I was thinking, and we talked to John Canzano about this earlier today. This is something that's always been around. I remember playing 5th or 6th grade basketball. And I remember a parent, and actually it was on our team, that was losing their minds on an official. In fact, she walked on the court losing her mind. I did this, there was an incident, I think I talked about it a little bit last year when I was coaching basketball, the Boys and Girls Club, an incident that happened. I've seen it in baseball. I'll be honest, in baseball, and I really haven't seen much of it in baseball. I think we've had like one incident, and it was real minor. But for some reason, I don't know, it just hasn't been a thing. And my son plays Little League, also plays club league. And I haven't seen it really yet. He's young, it's probably going to happen. I know it's going to happen. I've seen it in basketball. When I coached basketball in high school, by the way, I coached 5th and 6th graders in high school, or 6th graders. I saw it then. One of our kids got tied up and wrestled. He was a bigger kid, wrestled the ball away and kind of sent it was a tie, and kind of flew the kid down on the ground. And both kids they both tumbled and got hurt. I walked down the court to see if our player was okay, and then the other team's player was okay. I'm in high school, 17. And I had a parent yelling at me. Oh, way to go, coach. Way to set a great example. Like, hide the ball up. He did everything right. He ripped the ball away, as he should. You didn't do anything to him. Your kid went flailing. Your kid went to the ground and he didn't get hurt. None of them got hurt. So I think it's always been there. I don't think this is a problem. I don't think that this is a problem now because of society, that it's worse off than it's ever had. Maybe I'm incorrect on that. But I'm just giving you examples of, I have seen this stuff when I played youth sports, high school sports. I saw this stuff. I think it's always been there. It's probably more prevalent now with social media and the internet. Maybe we're just seeing it. But he has been charged, or the police found him. He got a traffic stoplight. And the case has been referred to the city attorney's office. Seattle police concluded that probable cause exists for 2 counts of misdemeanor assault. Okay, I'm a sports media person here, talk show host. I don't know anything about the law. I'm an idiot. Someone's got to explain to me how we think that's a misdemeanor. How is that not aggravated assault? Because I do know this because I looked it up this morning. I know the difference between a misdemeanor and aggravated assault and what the charges you can get and jail time. This guy needs to go to jail. I'm not saying for the rest of his life, but he needs to spend more time in jail than what a misdemeanor assault is going to provide him. And if I'm the Kraken released, I think, a statement to the Seattle Times, I'd like to hear more from the Kraken. If I'm a parent at one of these hockey teams, what are the Kraken doing to ensure that this stuff does not happen again? That my kid goes to a game, especially because the referees that were on the ice are teenagers. I mean, this behavior from this parent is despicable and wrong, even if it was an adult referee. The fact that these are 2 teenagers, a 14 and a 13-year-old, that is assault of a minor, and that needs to carry a lot more than just a misdemeanor. I'll tell you that. One, the Kraken have got to do something where I'm not going to punish the kid, because that's how I feel really bad for the kid of the father. Because, and John and I talked about it this morning, you see the behavior of that parent on the ice. Imagine, just put yourself in the shoes right now of that kid on rides home from practice and games. How miserable do you think his life is? That he's got to deal with that jackass. That jackass that's probably in his ear nonstop about what you didn't do right today, yada, yada, yada. So I don't want to punish the kid. I don't think the kid should be kicked out of the league. The kid should be able to, he didn't do anything. At least as far as I know, I didn't do anything. But that parent, and I know there was a statement, Jody Carpenter is the president. I'd like to get Jody on the show. Jody Carpenter is the president of the Pacific Northwest Amateur Hockey Association. Says the parent shoved, again, the 2 referees who were ages 13 and 14. Well, Jody Carpenter and this Pacific Northwest Amateur Hockey Association and the Kraken need to, because, again, this happened on their complex. They better be careful here if there's going to be any charges, or if they don't come down hard enough on this individual, what the parents of those 2 referees are going to do. You expect when you drop off as a parent, you drop off your 2 teenage kids to go referee a 12U rec hockey league game, that they're going to be, I don't know, protected and not abused by an adult. So that is on the Kraken. That is on the people that work at the ice complex. That is their responsibility, that they are providing a safe place for these people. And that's on Jody Carpenter and the Pacific Northwest Amateur Hockey Association. I'd have real reservations if I had a kid that was refereeing in this league. Where were people that saw? I mean, this guy had to go down from the stands, by the way, unless he was down on the ice, like outside of it. He opened up the door as I played the video before. He walked a good distance to get to the 2 kids. One of my other thoughts was, where were some other parents not intervening? I don't know why are there balloons going off in the screen? I don't know. And where were the coaches? Where were the 2 coaches on the ice? Maybe I'll defend them that maybe they had their back turned or something else was going on and they weren't paying attention. But again, it's not like that guy jumped on the ice and started running down. It was a slow burn and a slow walk. Where were they? In fact, in the video, you see actually one of the coaches kind of open up the door and then sees the parent and goes back in. So there's a failure of a lot of people here. This Pacific Northwest Hockey Association failed. The Kraken that took place on their ice failed. The coaches, again, failed. The parents there failed. And this type of stuff, I mean, it's happening way too much and is just unacceptable. That guy should never be able to step foot ever again. Ever again on a youth hockey ice. He has just given up his right to watch his kid play in that league ever again. And you say, "Oh, that's too harsh." It's not too harsh, because this is we treat this stuff that happens to officials with kids' gloves. We really do. I mean, I see it in middle school basketball that I coach. You know, I'm sitting there watching a game before one of ours, and just the shit that's being thrown at these people. It's just embarrassing. I turned to one woman during it, and her team was getting beat by like 30. I mean, they just clearly were not good. And she's complaining about the calls. I did say, I said, "Hey, you know they're volunteers, right? These two people down there. They're not any volunteers, but I think some of that we bring high school refs down to coach middle school." I said, "They're not being paid much. You understand that, right? And your team is down 30, and you're complaining about a foul. The referees have nothing to do with your team being down 30. Of course, you know, then the response back to me was snarky and mind your own business. But it's embarrassing. All of it. You know, and I coach not only JV, but a JVC team, which is just primarily sixth graders, right? We don't even have referees for it. We're taking parents out of the stands for this. Because why? Because no one wants to ref it. Because no one wants to put up with you people. These parents that are like this youth hockey league coach. All right. We're going to have more on this on Hey, What the Puck. But Danny Kelly's in the green room. He's waiting by. He's like, "Will you shut up so we can get to our appearance?" We will get to Danny Kelly's appearance. We talk football. We talk draft. This segment on Puck Sports is brought to you by Georgetown Brewery.
Drink Georgetown Tavern Beer, your new locally brewed domestic-style lager. 4.2% alcohol. Cheap, good, local.
That's right. Georgetown Brewery. We talk NFL draft, the Georgetown Tavern Beer, easy drinking domestic style lager made with Pacific Northwest barley and Yakima Valley hops. 4.2%. Brewed by my friends at Georgetown Brewery, makers of Manny's Pale Ale, Bodhisattva IPA, Rogers Pilsner. Go check out the brand new Georgetown Tavern Beer at the brewery. Visit georgetownbeer.com. Danny Kelly from the Ringers with us. Follow him on Twitter and Blue Sky at Danny B. Kelly, senior staff writer. Sounds so much better than saying it's sophomore staff writer. Ringer Fantasy Football Show, Ringer NFL Draft Show. You're in the Spotify headquarters?
I am. I apologize. I don't know my usual mic and good like audio setup, but yeah, I'm in the Spotify offices right here. I got myself a little office.
Hey, have you
pretty
met
cool.
Bill Simmons?
I have met him, yeah.
If you had a penny for every time someone asked you, "Hey, what's Bill Simmons like?"
I get a lot of people telling me to tell Bill stuff, and I'm like, I'm not going to tell him that for you, but thank you for letting me know.
Hey, I've got an idea. I've got a podcast. It covers, the pickleball. I think this would be great. Be great
that
for the Ringer.
Play. Yeah, that actually might play.
It might play.
I'll tell him that for you.
Yeah, thank you. So, did we have a big watch party at the headquarters down there for the Ringer and Spotify?
Yeah.
Nice.
Well, we were in New Orleans for the week doing Radio Row and all that fun, all that jazz. And then we flew back to LA and we watched. There's a big like movie theater here in the Spotify offices. We watched the Super Bowl in there. It was pretty fun.
I bet it was. Is it all catered, free drinks and food and everything?
We got beers. It's not catered. I guess we ordered some food and everything, but it wasn't anything fancy. There's like 10 of us there. It wasn't like anything too major, but it was fun. It was cool because like all the commercials were super cinematic because they had all the movie theater speakers on and stuff. It was like, whoa.
Jeez.
It was pretty cool. The game sucked though.
It did. It was terrible. Hey, before we get into the game though, okay.
Yeah.
Have you done Radio Row before?
I have, yeah. This was probably like my third or fourth one. I would say
And,
at Super Bowl. Yeah.
and your thoughts of doing Radio Row?
It's just, I mean, it's pure chaos. It's sometimes a little bit silly because basically, if you haven't been there, it's a lot of it's a whole huge setup with everybody's got every radio station or podcast has their little setup, and then you have all these celebrities and players and people walking around, hawking their products, and so you interview them in exchange for them telling you all about this random product like Bounty paper towels or whatever
Sure.
whatever
What
it
was
is.
the big product this week? When I remember being at the Phoenix Super Bowl was the last one I was at for the Seahawks. The big thing there was no, I was in Atlanta.
Mhm.
What was the Atlanta game? That was with
That was the Patriots Rams.
Patriots Rams. That
Yeah.
was it was CBD. CBD was the big one.
Oh, yeah,
That
yeah.
everybody was pitching CBD.
Were you able to try CBD right there on Radio Row?
We had one person that was not just on CBD, was on the real THC, and I'm pretty sure who was that?
Yeah.
Kyle Turley, I think.
Mm.
He had a couple cocktails, too,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, yeah.
he was a little he was feeling it.
That will happen. Yeah.
What was the big what was the big main pitch?
I mean, the Bounty
Bounty.
paper towels has like been the big one the last 2 years. They had this massive stage, and they were having people. They were walking around with a bunch of chicken wing, like really, sauced up chicken wings and stuff, and getting your hands all dirty, and then they're like handing you these really super absorbent paper towels. Uh, Advertising is the weirdest thing, man. It's just such a funny thing. But yeah, I think the Bounty stage was probably the biggest, and then there was also Cam Jordan from the Saints was riding around on like a Segway scooter. He was hauling ass. He was going like honestly like 30 miles an hour inside the Radio Row area. We thought someone was going to die, including him. So that was kind of interesting. But yeah, it was fun. It was like obviously we played a little beer pong game. Go check it out on our YouTube
Oh,
channel.
wonderful.
Ringer NFL YouTube. It was fun. We basically were like, we know that you don't really want to be here doing these interviews, so if you sink the first ball, you can just leave. You don't have to talk to us. You can just pitch your product and go.
Oh, that's
So,
great. Oh, what a great
yeah.
idea. So are you in the same, help me understand, because being on Radio Row, there's like two separate like radio rows. There's
Mm.
the, for all of the people that look the same in sports radio, white, overweight with polos on.
Sure.
And then there's the TV, like the TV wing kind of has their own separate,
Yeah.
and that's where more the beautiful people are.
Right. Yeah.
Where were you?
The people we were in the area with the people that have faces for radio.
Yeah, so a
and-
lot of polos on and everyone yelling, "Ah, yeah, that's right. I'm Mahomes. He doesn't stand a chance." Like how
Yes.
everybody's competing for how loud they can be.
Yes. That's exactly where we were.
Okay.
We were next to PFF. They were very polite and kind.
Okay. That's good.
And then we were next to Josina Anderson on the other side. And we kept apparently we were encroaching on her space a little bit too much, but that'll happen. But yeah, the way that they set up the Radio Row on this one was everybody, all the radio people were like in the middle, and then on the outsides they had like the big ass studio setups where they could do TV and stuff. Like CBS had theirs.
Yeah.
We got to actually do one of our shows from the FanDuel stage, which was really fun. FanDuel was one of our big sponsors there, and so that was really cool. And yeah, just stuff like that. So they had them kind of like the big stages on the outside, and then we were like in the bullpen on the inside. So
Hey, FanDuel, I like sports gambling, and if
Yeah, you
FanDuel
do.
you'd like to be a part of Puck Sports, hit me up. FanDuel,
I can
Puck Sports.
tell. Do you want me to tell Bill Simmons for you?
Please pass it on.
Yeah.
Pass it on to Bill for me. I find it. I've been to 3 of them. I find it. I never want to go back.
I think
it drives me nuts. I just don't like the yelling and the screaming and everybody looking the same and everybody doing the same shtick. And then it's just it's just a turnstile of guests. And you're right. They don't want to be there. You have to ask them, the stupid small talk of the game.
They get paid a lot to be there, though.
I
I
know.
will say.
And then you're like,
Yeah.
"Oh, hey, before you go, tell me about this new ED cream that you have." There's no smooth transition to go from like, "Hey, your thoughts on the game." By the way, that new snoring apparatus you got, for apnea, what do you got?
Yeah.
It's the worst.
It's classic. Classic.
It is classic. Yeah. So it's and then it's just, and then I remember one time in the Phoenix one, Furness and I are doing a show together, and Marshall Falk is, I don't know what he's pitching. He's pitching Subway or something, and he just did the entire interview with his phone like this. Yeah, I don't know. I think Seattle's got.
He's just reading his phone.
Hold on one sec. Texting. Yeah, I think Seattle's got a shot at it. Never made eye contact the entire time. It's just like, if you don't want to be, just leave. Just get out of town.
Just mailing it in a little bit. I think that happens. That will happen.
Who was your favorite? Did you have a good one? I love the beer pong idea. That's great.
Yeah, the beer pong was really fun. It made it kind of like laid back and fun, which was nice. Cam Hayward from the Steelers was really fun. He has his own podcast now. And so we know his producers. And so we were just like, hey, come on over. You can plug it and play some beer pong. He was super nice.
Did he ask about Bill Simmons?
Yeah, he was like, hey, can you tell Bill Simmons to no. He was really cool. Trying to think who else we had. We had Brian Westbrook, who was good.
Okay.
We had oh crap, I can't remember his name. He was the long snapper for the Patriots during their Super Bowl era, and he did a few beer pong shots like as a long snapper, so that was really fun. And then he actually threw his Super Bowl ring into one of the cups. Hold on, I gotta figure out his name because I'm just blanking on it.
Hey, did you ask him? Was the NFL honors when you were there? Had you done a show after the NFL awards show to talk about Belichick's girlfriend?
We didn't ask about that. His name was Lonnie Paxton, by the way.
Okay.
But no, we did not ask anybody about that. Kept it professional. Playing beer pong as much as you can do playing beer pong. Our boy Jake Browning, by the way. He was the only athlete who sunk it in the first try.
Well,
there was two Browning. People. Yeah, honestly, he's just like locked in, confidence. I my respect for him went up. I already had a lot of respect for him. It went up on that play. I asked him. He made it on the first shot, and I asked him to do the whole point thing, where he pointed to the Oregon guy when he was scoring.
Great picture.
So yeah, that was fun. He was promoting he has like a quarterback training company that like will help quarterbacks in the offseason, like do everything they need to do to get ready for the season. So
like for NFL quarterbacks or for any quarterbacks? Like youth quarterback, like high school guys, or
I think both pro and amateur. I'm not sure though.
He's playing right next year, right? He was the backup in Cincinnati.
Yeah, he's the backup in Cincinnati. And honestly, when he came in a couple years ago for Burrow, he was like good. Like he was really good. So he might end up being I don't know. I could see him end up being like a spot starter here and there eventually in the league. But yeah, he was cool.
Try to like a Gardner Minshew type.
Totally, 100%.
Better than that, yeah.
Yeah, just a plucky, confident. He's willing to push the ball down the field.
Yeah.
Obviously, that first shot just nailed it. I'm like, this guy's got it. He's got that. Yeah. He's got that it factor.
Yeah, he's got that right. That every interview that you guys do now at the Ringer on all your draft shows, and you just got to incorporate the beer pong.
Yeah, it is. It's a litmus test to be how good you are at quarterback. I think so. Yeah,
I agree. I 100% agree. All right, so you got to the Super Bowl. We're gonna get to the draft because now it's like attention. And for people who don't know, Danny does a ton of work on the draft. I mean, he's literally got the Ringer NFL Draft Show. So this is kind of. I'll speak for you. Sometimes I feel like this season now of the NFL, you almost like more a little bit because you're getting to the draft. I could be wrong.
I think I like them for both reasons. I mean, the NFL season's hard to beat just because I'm like obsessed with fantasy football. So like the real games, you just can't really beat that. But the draft is really fun too because I play a lot of dynasty fantasy football. So I'm like scouting for my dynasty teams. So I'm just kind of obsessed with fantasy football. Yeah, it's a nerdy thing. But
so this whole thing that you've been doing,
it's just to feed my addiction. Yes,
just to feed your addiction of your fantasy franchise fantasy football.
I've purposefully positioned myself in my career to make my fantasy teams better. I don't know how much it's worked. Like I did win a couple of leagues this year. I wish I would have won a few more. I was in like I was in the Final Four in like 11 leagues, and I only won like 2. It was like really brutal. I just got really unlucky down the stretch. Um, but yeah, I study fantasy football during the regular season, then I study the draft during the off season, and it's all just to make my fantasy teams better. That's basically the only reason I'm doing any of this. Um, but I also, in my scouting reports or whatever, I do all the other positions too. But obviously, paying attention to skill players.
You are living the American dream. For so many people that are watching this and listening to this later, you have crafted out a career based on fantasy football.
Yeah. If you want me to ask Bill Simmons anything about how to do that in your own life,
you need to write what I want you to do is write a book about this, about how you've been able to do this. You have hoodwinked this entire group over there. It's beautiful.
Well, you know what? I think it all starts back when you invited me to have a podcast with you back in like 2012, 2013. I think it was 2012 or 13.
Yeah, I think it was 12.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
So you had Bill Simmons, the insight, you were ahead of him by about let's see here, 5-6 years.
I know. It's unbelievable.
So good for you.
It's unbelievable. We missed. I just, because I'm such an idiot, I couldn't look to the future to see what was going to happen. Boring game. I mean, or did you take some entertainment in it that the Eagles were so dominant on defense?
No, I thought that was pretty cool. Obviously, there's a lot of parallels, I think, to the 2013 Seahawks game, that Super Bowl where they beat the Broncos, came in and just like destroyed the top offense in the NFL that year, one of the best offenses ever assembled. The Seahawks just came and absolutely just dismantled that team. And it felt very reminiscent of that, the way that the Eagles were able to just completely control the game. Like the Chiefs got going in the fourth quarter when it was garbage time, but they basically did nothing for 3 quarters. And so I thought that was super, super impressive team win, which is like, again, like the Seahawks, there's, I think, some parallels with Russell Wilson and Jalen Hurts in terms of their style of play. And so, yeah, it just got that game brought back memories of the 2013 Super Bowl a little bit, just like how dominant it was. So I was like kind of living vicariously through Eagles fans who got to enjoy, a good solid, at least 2 quarters of like just dominant blowout type of game.
Sure.
So I would say, that was like really the big takeaway for me. Was like, this really feels reminiscent of that old LOB. We got to figure out a nickname for this Eagles defense because, this is like an all-time performance. This defense was insane.
It did very reminiscent of it, but I also, I turned on by mistake some of the yelling shows in the morning, and it was like, this is very LOB like, and I'm like, no, it wasn't. No, that the defense that did that was against an offense that was the best offense in the history of the sport. This offense that the Eagles did it against was a middle of the pack offense. I know, with a great quarterback, but the defense, the LOB, they gave up 8 points. All right. And the guy threw for 55 touchdowns and 5,000 yards.
Yeah.
And they obliterated them. So, I like, it's like I had to defend, the Seahawks reputation.
I'm with you on that. I'm not saying that this is as good of a defense. The game just reminded me of that. Actually, I was before the game, I saw a tweet from Jimmy Kempski, who covers the Eagles, and he said something along the lines of, I've been with the team all week. I've kind of been in the locker room or whatever, talking to these guys. My biggest takeaway is that they just know they're going to like kick the Chiefs' ass. Like, basically, he tweeted this before the game, and that reminded me so much. I remember Curtis Crabtree tweeted this after the game, and when the Seahawks won the Super Bowl, and he was like, my biggest takeaway was like, the Seahawks just knew they were going to dominate that game. They went into the game supremely confident that they had all the answers to what the Broncos were doing, and I think that was exactly what the Eagles felt in this game. I mean, they did not blitz him one time in the entire game.
Unbelievable.
And they sacked him 6 times. They pressured him 16 times. They made his life a living hell. They beat the crap out of him. And that was like with 0 sacks. Pretty incredible for a team that went to the Super Bowl. They won 15 games and went to the Super Bowl. The Chiefs did. Yeah. And they absolutely dominated those guys. So, hats off to them. I definitely don't think that they were on the caliber of like a Legion of Boom, but you got a couple players on that front 4 that, have a chance to be all-time great players too.
Do you have draft remorse not taking Jalen Carter?
Oh, Just a little. I think it is a little bit hindsight's 2020 when it comes to like obviously the Jalen Carter stuff, the off the field stuff was a concern. He had just
Yeah.
gotten into that situation with the car accident, and I understand why they didn't take him from that point of view. But yeah, I was talking to Chris Ryan, who is a Ringer guy over here, and he is a huge Eagles fan, and he was just like, loving life, and I was just like, man, the Seahawks maybe should have taken Jalen Carter.
Well, I think you can say this, and I can't be a hypocrite. I remember, we did shows on draft night leading up to the draft, and I was like, no, I'm not taking them. I'm not taking them.
It
I
felt
just
very risky at the time. Yeah.
risky. And I think probably for Schneider, there's a lot of um, the fallout from McDowell,
Mhm.
right? What was his
Yeah.
first name?
Malik McDowell.
Malik McDowell. There's a lot of fallout from Malik McDowell. And I think probably for Schneider, he had that in the back of his mind. God, if I take him,
I
is
know.
this going to be another Malik McDowell situation where there's all these red flags, and
Mhm.
then the play on the field is good, but red flags, and then all of a sudden he's out of the league in a couple of years. And I think for them, I don't know if they could have taken that risk again. And I remember just
Yeah.
leading up to it, I just personally had a problem, and it's hard because you gotta separate like no one in this world are choir boys. We've all done bad
Sure.
stuff. All right.
Sure.
When you're investing though in someone like this, you got to balance it. The play on the field and what's happening off the field. I fundamentally had a problem with him. He gets in a car accident. That's fine. I mean, somebody lost their life, and then he just bolted. And I'm
Mhm.
thinking, well, God, what is this? This speaks a lot to his character as a person. If he's, there's one thing to get in an accident, but then to bolt from it, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I know he was probably scared and all that. So I was one, hey, let's steer clear of him.
Right.
The play on the field, though, I mean, listen, this
Yeah.
is exactly what they have been missing, the Seahawks, for years, is that type of player.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, again, hindsight's 2020, but
Right.
I think like this is not to speak anything, but Devin Witherspoon has been great. And I think he's the type of guy that will change the intensity of your defense. Like I have no problem with that pick. It's just it's a full philosophical thing. He was the guy they picked right instead.
Correct. Yeah.
I'm not. I'm not. I just want
No,
to make
you
sure I'm
got
not misremembering. But yeah, he. But I would say like there's a philosophical idea, like question here, or like discussion to be had. Is like, do you build from the inside out on your team, and which has definitely been like the Eagles thing. Like they build in the trenches, they build offensive line, they build defensive line, and then you add players on the fringes of the play. Because I mean, at the end of the day, defensive tackle is involved in almost every play.
Right.
He like such an impact. You're impacting 30 plays a game or whatever it is. However many snaps you're playing on the outside, it's like you might see them throw at Devin Witherspoon 2 or 3 times a game, maybe. And he has a couple tackles, of course, but like it's just a number and that's why like quarterback, offensive line, defensive tackle, those guys tend to go a lot higher just because they're impacting so many plays, play in and play out. These guys are making huge impacts, especially late in games. So, I think that's kind of just like, man, what would the Seahawks defense look like if Jalen Carter was just like the foundational piece of the interior defensive line? I don't know. It's an interesting discussion. At the end of the day, I understand why they didn't do that pick, but now it looks, you kind of regret it a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. And you're right. And it's not a it's sad because the commentary is not supposed to be about, hey, Devin Witherspoon is a bad player because he's
Sure.
not.
He's a good player.
He's a real good player, but it's just looking back on it and you see the violent nature and the dominance that a guy like Jalen Carter plays with, and I mean that's just what's been missing from from this team for a very long time. All right, so we turn our attention now to the draft. They will no doubt address both lines. I mean, that's the one thing that stands out in the Super Bowl. One, you had a dominant offensive line for Philadelphia. You had holes on Kansas City. We talk about this all the time, and it's such a cliche. You just win games in the trenches. That's how you win. And your point about, hey, they had 4 guys, they didn't blitz, and they had all this pressure. You have to build from inside and go outside. This year's crop of guys, defensive line. I mean, I know there's going to be players like Abdul Carter, who are going to be there. They'd have no shot at Abdul Carter.
No.
But what does it look like in terms of defensive linemen? How would you rate this class of 2025 in terms of interior defensive linemen?
I think it's a great class. I think the strength of the class, in my mind, is in the trenches. It's interior defensive linemen. I think there's some very exciting edge players in this class. Um, and I think that's like a huge opportunity for the Seahawks, obviously. Not like it's like the biggest need for them, but like you got guys like Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant from Michigan, two very good interior defensive linemen that, you could see McDonald have some connection to. Obviously, he probably has a little bit more information on those guys than average. So that could be options for the Seahawks. You got Derek Harmon from Oregon. You got a couple like really, really big guys. I already mentioned one of them in Grant, and then Deone Walker from Kentucky is like, 6'6", 350. And so he's the type of guy that has pretty twitchy movement skills for a player that size. You just don't find that many players like that. And then, there's some interior, like faster, twitchier interior defensive guys. Walter Nolan from Ole Miss is getting a ton of hype. He's actually being talked about as a potential like top 15 pick at this point. So that's a guy to keep in mind for sure. And so, yeah, I'd say interior defensive line, a lot of good edges. I think there's probably not like, there's maybe like one blue chip edge in Abdul Carter. And then there's a bunch of other guys that I think could develop into really good pass rushers. But I really like this edge class. I think I've got like 7 or 8 edge players in my top 32 right now. So this is like it's a really solid edge class as well.
So at 18, if they want to address the defense along the line, there are going to be plenty of available, like good, talented players there.
Yes.
And it sounds like the depth of this class is going to be one thing that probably separates this draft in 25.
Yeah, I think this class, the way I would characterize it is it's not super talented in terms of blue chip players. There's not like a ton of blue chip guys. You have a handful: Travis Hunter, Abdul Carter, Ashton Genty. I think those are the top like blue chip players. But I think there's a lot of depth. Like you'll be able to find starter caliber players in the second and third round. I just think there's a lot of guys that have a lot of talent, good athleticism, plug and play type guys. There's some really good tight ends in this class. There's some really good corners. There's a handful of linebackers that I'm really interested in from the Seahawks point of view, because I think the way that the Seahawks play their defense, and you have to have sort of like versatile linebackers that can drop back and rush the passer and blitz. So there's a handful of guys that I like in this class for that. So yeah, it's a very interesting class. It's just not going to have that much star power, I think, relative to other years. Yeah.
What about here's a position I didn't think I would ask you about. But as we do these shows throughout the draft, I'm just curious about it, and not because I don't think there is something wrong with Ken Walker, but I am curious. They'll have a decision to make next year on him after next year about whether or not they want to reach a contract with him, and I wonder the shelf life of running backs, right? It's not very long. It's you don't have these guys that play a long period of time anymore.
And he hasn't really proven he can stay healthy either.
He can't stay healthy. And then you look at this class of running backs, you correct me if I'm wrong, it seems like it's a pretty strong class. And I'm wondering, here's what I'd say. I'm looking at one site, and when I see Damian Martinez is ranked like, I don't know, 125th of all the drafted players. I'm like, really? Like, that's got to be a good class if he's ranked 125th.
I would say that I've heard people say this is the best running back class in like 10 plus years. I don't know. I have a hard time like comparing the classes. I feel like I just like don't know how to do that, but I think it's a really good class. I think so. I've got Ashton Genty. Obviously, I think he's probably going to be a top 10 pick almost surely. He's a rare prospect. I like Caleb Johnson from Iowa a lot. He's a really exciting, big, physical slasher type of running back that plays.
What about Cam Scatterbo?
Cam Scatterbo, just a football playing Jesse.
Yeah.
I have a hard time. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I think he'll probably end up being more like a third rounder or something like that, because I don't think he'll be able to like run super fast, but he's like one of those players that just come in and like he just knows how to play the position. He's a good player. I personally really like Travion Henderson from Ohio State. He is just, I mean, when you talk about juice from a running back, he has incredible speed, acceleration,
Yeah.
lateral agility. He reminds me of, and I was trying to, I'm actually like looking at him right now, right before I talk to you. He kind of reminds me of like an Austin Eckler, kind of like really explosive, plays on all three downs, smart, savvy, experienced. He's probably going to be a second rounder. There's some people talking about him maybe being a first rounder, but I would guess probably second round because he's not the biggest guy. But he kind of reminds me of Eckler in a way, just because he's explosive, can create the big play. Early career Eckler, not necessarily what we see with Eckler now. But he has rare juice, I think. So he's a really exciting guy. So there, and then obviously like you add in, his teammate Quinshon Judkins, really good. Omarion Hampton from North Carolina, super exciting. Ollie Gordon, Oklahoma State, another huge guy. Kind of reminds me of like a James Conner type of player.
Yep.
There's, you mentioned Scatabo and Martinez. There's a handful of other guys. Trevor Etienne from Georgia, good pass catcher. There's probably like 10 or 15 running backs in this class that could end up being like contributors.
Yeah, I think it's going to surprise people. I think they will end up taking one.
It would not surprise me either. I love Kenneth Walker. I feel like I've been like Kenneth Walker's biggest supporter, but the fact that he can't stay healthy is a worry.
Yeah, it's a big concern.
Yeah,
it just really is.
So I mean, man, for running backs, especially explosive ones like him, guys that are physical, those core muscle injuries, I don't know if they go away. You know what I mean? Like it's not something that really gets better. It's like you never used to have a bad back. You always just kind of, if you have a bad back, you have it forever. And I kind of worry a little bit about that with Walker, even though I love him. Like I think he's one of the best running backs in the league. He just can't stay healthy.
Yeah, offensive line. It was something that they will no doubt address. They have always addressed it in the draft. It just hasn't worked out for them, and we'll see if they address it there at 18. What does overall the offensive line look like? And then specifically interior, centers, guards.
Yeah, I would say there's probably, if there's a blue chip player on the line, it's probably Will Campbell from LSU. But I wouldn't call him a blue chip because I think there are questions whether he's going to be a guard or a tackle at the next level, which, isn't necessarily what you want at the top 10. I think he's a really good player. I think he'll be a starter from day one, and he'll be a really good player. But there's some question marks about his overall length. The reason I brought him up is because I think there's a lot of guys kind of that fit that mold where, they're listed as tackles, but they might be guards at the next level. There's some question marks about like their ability to survive out on the edge. So I think it's a good tackle class, a good tackle guard class, I guess you would say, where you got guys that are kind of like fringe tackles or guards. Josh Simmons from Ohio State, Armand Membu from Missouri, I think is a guy that the Seahawks are probably going to fall in love with. Right. Josh Connerly from Oregon, former 5-star. He's kind of got like that high-end potential athletically, but still kind of putting things together. Let's see here. Yeah, there's and then Tyler Booker from Alabama, I think, is a guy that the Seahawks fans are probably going to be interested in because
he's the highest rated guard, correct?
Probably, yeah, probably. I would say unless you count some of those guys I just mentioned as guards. Okay. Kelvin Banks from Texas, another guy that might be a tackle, might be a guard. Okay. So yeah, there's a handful of guys. Donovan Jackson from Ohio State, another Ohio State guy, is getting a lot of hype right now. He bumped out to tackle for them this last year because Simmons went down, and he was really impressive for them at tackle. But he's a guard as well. So I think if the Seahawks invested, honestly, if they've used their first 2 picks on offensive linemen, I would be like ecstatic. Just find five guys.
Picks on offensive linemen, Danny.
Might as well just lean into it. Like Schneider's always kind of like push him back a little bit, like, dude, we're trying. Okay, use all 7 of your picks, or however many picks you have this year on offensive line. I'm fine with that.
Quarterbacks, will he take a quarterback, you think, this year? I know it's not a great class, but I'm just curious if there's someone maybe late that they end up pulling the trigger on.
Well, I would have said Jackson Dart from Ole Miss was the guy that they might have had their eye on in like the 2nd or 3rd round, but now he's getting 1st round hype, so that might not end up working out for the Seahawks. I honestly, like, Jalen Milroe from Alabama is very intriguing to me. I was just watching him yesterday, and he's so explosive, man. He reminds me of, and this is probably, people will look at this as a negative, and he reminds me of Justin Fields. But as a developmental guy that you could bring in and hope to turn into a Jalen Hurts type of player, because he's going to run like a 4.4, 4.3. He's super explosive, really good athlete, and he has a good deep ball. He can throw the ball deep. But I think he's not super polished as a passer in the short and intermediate area. Kind of erratic accuracy, some of the decision making. He threw a few too many picks down the stretch, and he was getting some first round hype, some like top 10 hype during the college season, and that's fallen off a lot. But when we get to the combine, he might be the type of guy who can really like get people excited again because he's such a good athlete. He's just a twitchy, explosive athlete. The only problem is, and I think this could take him off the Seahawks board, is he has very small hands. He has like eight and a half inch hands.
Out.
I mean that
Can't have
Schneider. Schneider. He's like constantly talking about big hands. That was like Russell Wilson's thing.
Did Josh Allen have big hands?
Oh, he's got the biggest. He's got meat hooks for hands.
Dang it.
No, I actually don't remember. I'm pretty sure Josh Allen had big hands. Let's see here.
How can someone that big, that Jalen Monroe is, have small hands? I don't understand.
I don't know, man. He got the athletic gifts everywhere but his hands.
Do you let me ask you, the way
Allen does have big hands, by the way, 10 and an eighth.
Do you see, can you remember when you're describing Milroe, it seemed to me, and I want to go back and like maybe find some articles about how people describe Josh Allen coming out. Because he low completion percentage in college. It wasn't good.
Right.
Played at Wyoming. I remember watching a game. I remember all the hype about Allen. I remember watching their game against Oregon, and he was terrible.
Yeah.
But he ends up
super erratic. Yeah.
He ends up being a first round pick, and I just wonder if there's some comp there between Allen and Jalen Monroe at all.
I mean, I think the only difference, the big differences are Allen's about 3 inches taller and 10 to 15 pounds heavier. So and then obviously like the 10 and an eighth inch hands.
So much bigger
from a prototypical quarterback. Josh Allen is like exactly how they're meant to be built. Like that's like the GM's dream in terms of like his size, frame, arm strength, and competitiveness, all that. With Milroe, he's like 6'2". Something like that. Yeah. So I think, I think there in terms of arm strength, Milroe's got a cannon. In terms of athleticism and mobility and ability to escape pressure and be a part of the run game, I think he's got that. He's probably a better overall like athlete in terms of speed than Allen. I think very few players are better athletes overall than Allen, but he's more explosive. But I think just in terms of the size, the hand size, the that point of view, he's not really on that level.
Okay. All right, Danny, next week we'll continue to talk. We're going to just talk draft all the way up into it. And follow Danny, again, on social media, on Twitter and Blue Sky, Danny B. Kelly, again, senior staff writer. He's got the Ringer NFL Draft Show, fantasy show that's, taking a back seat now to the NFL draft show he's doing. What do you got up at the Ringer right now in terms of everyone that wants to jump into the deep end of the pool about the NFL draft?
Well, obviously, listen to the NFL Draft Show. You can find that on the Ringer NFL Draft Show. You can find that on Spotify. I got my NFL Draft Guide up at theringer.com, nfldraft.theringer.com. And we'll be doing a big update before the Combine. We have mock drafts up there. Todd McShay is going to be featured somewhat on the Draft Guide this year as well. So check that out. Keep that going. That's not quite updated quite yet, but that will be soon. You can check out his podcast as well. He has a new podcast at The Ringer, which is excellent. But yeah, we got a bunch of really good draft content coming up for you.
Good. All right, Danny. We'll talk to you next week. Thank you, sir. Safe travels home.
Sounds good. Thank you.
All right, there he is, Danny B. Kelly, on Twitter and Blue Sky. Danny Kelly, senior staff writer at The Ringer and the Ringer NFL Draft Show. Our draft coverage all brought to you by Georgetown Tavern Beer, easy drinking domestic style lager made with Pacific Northwest barley and Yakima Valley hops, 4.2%, brewed by my friends at Georgetown Brewing, makers of Manny's Pale Ale and Bodie Zaffa IPA. Georgetown Tavern Beer. Hey, my apologies. I wasn't looking at the comments when I was going on the rant about the hockey player assault when I was playing the video. For some reason, that audio, I guess I was getting drowned out because of the audio. I couldn't hear it in my ears. So to me, there was nothing. It was just me babbling. So my apologies about that. Sorry. And if that ruined it for you, we'll make it up to you. So my apologies about that one. All right. Caught up with John Canzano earlier today. John is always brought to you by Zeke's Pizza. I recorded it early this morning because John is working on a project. We cover that hockey assault. We cover new news on the Pac-12 media. We look at college basketball and the teams that left the Pac-12. How are they doing now? Why are some having success? Why are others not having success? Expansion. Is Texas State a player for the expansion in the Pac-12? Our weekly conversation with John Canzano from johncanzano.com. Ladies and gentlemen, that time of week, it's John Canzano. I always feel like a big, Price is Right guy. John Canzano Show.
Come
Brought
on
to you
down.
by Zeke's Pizza, home ground of the Northwest, Zeke'sPizza.com. Follow John on Twitter, John Canzano BFT. The Bald Face Truth Radio station down there in Portland, Oregon, 750 The Game. 3 to 6 p.m. every single day. And, of course, John joins us every week. We are inside the Puck Sports Studios built by Limback Lumber. Thank you to Limback Lumber, the fine sponsor of Puck Sports. You're recovering from your Super Bowl hangover.
Yeah.
I bet you got after it, didn't you?
Yeah, got after it. We had a lot of our kids' friends from school come over to the house, so it was like the pickup line at the elementary school in our kitchen. That was all the moms and dads you just see in passing, and so what an underwhelming game, huh?
Yeah.
Like people complaining about the halftime show. What about the first, second, and third and fourth quarters?
The game was awful.
The game was not good, not compelling, but I was happy to see the Eagles win. I think it was good for football not to have the Chiefs win again. Taylor Swift got booed. I mean, this was different.
I do love how that was the storyline. She got booed. How did Travis take that? Okay, I've got a lot to unpack there with the party. I want to circle back to the party, but I want to start. You bring something up. I wanted to see the Chiefs win. Okay, that really needed them to win, but that's fine. But I'm a big history guy. I love when people can accomplish something that's never been accomplished before. And that's what I was rooting for the Chiefs, even if I didn't bet on them. I just wanted to see something I've never seen before, and that would be to win 3 straight. You see, you're the opposite. You wanted to be preserved for sports, that no one gets a three-peat.
No, but here's the thing. I mean, you're hitting on something that I think is an interesting sociology experiment. It's not that you wanted to see something that had never happened before, because lots of things that never happened before happen all the time. It's that you wanted to be there to witness it. You wanted to say you were alive when the team won 3 straight Super Bowls. And this is a interesting phenomenon because, I wrote about this last week, that I was in China for the 2008 Olympics in Beijing. And Michael Phelps swam 8 races. He won 8 gold medals. He set 7 world records. It was the most dominant Olympic performance in history. I was curious, how that was flying with the Chinese nationals, because they wanted their Olympics to be the greatest ever. They were in this race with the United States for at the top of the medal table. And so I went off to a small village when Phelps was swimming in his 7th race, just to kind of view it through the eyes of people in this town. And so I went to this neighborhood where these shopkeepers were watching the Olympics on TV, and I watched with them. They were rooting for Phelps for the same reason you were rooting for Mahomes. They wanted to see greatness at their Olympics. They wanted it to be the best ever. They set aside their nationalism and said, it's better for this Olympics, and it's better for me if I can see something that has never happened before. I just find that interesting that, we are all in this thing. And when you say who's the greatest athlete of all time, you're going to get this recency bias that we have all witnessed. You're not going to get people saying Jim Thorpe, even though he should be in that conversation, or Jackie Robinson or Jesse Owens. These, they should be in that conversation. But you're going to get people saying, "Oh, I'm witnessing the best thing that has ever happened." And I think there's a little bit of arrogance. I'm not picking on you here. There's a little bit of human arrogance. Like when you go to the Natural Living History Museum in New York, you realize how short a time we've been on Earth. And how arrogant we all are to think oh, this is an artifact, this is an antique. And then they go, no. People in China invented steel. Your lunch pail that you had in 1977 should not be in an antique store. But there's something, Puck, about sociology that's wrapped up in this. And about half of us, I noted, were rooting against it. And the other half were rooting for it as we watched the game, even in our house. You
remember your first lunch pail that you had, that was a design of a TV show? What was it?
It was no, I didn't. I had the the General Lee. What was that show called?
Oh, Dukes of Hazzard.
Dukes of Hazzard. I had a Dukes of Hazzard lunch pail, and then I morphed into the lunch pail that every young child in my elementary school had. I had the 28 NFL teams and their helmets on a lunch pail.
Do you remember the small helmets you collect? Oh,
yeah.
Kiddies love that.
This came up yesterday because the book fair is going on again at my kid's school.
Yeah.
And my kid, again, went to the book fair and brought me home a gift. Can I share it with you real quick?
Sure.
Yeah. Look what she got me, because I'm a sports writer, sports columnist.
Yeah, love it. Just
all
love
the NFL teams, in case I forget.
Yeah, well, you might.
In case I forget.
Yeah, you could. I bought my son those small helmets, right?
Yeah.
And so he doesn't do it anymore, but a couple of years ago, he would every week would put it in the standings like I used to do.
Yeah.
Here are the standings this week. Here's in first place in the AFC East. And I was like, God, that's
I love that.
The best. Dukes of Hazzard, great one. God, I used to love that one. Mine was G.I. Joe's.
G.I. Joe's
lunch pail. God, I wish those lunch pails would make a comeback.
Probably will, man.
They probably are.
But you would carry one. I would carry that NFL lunch pail with 28 helmets on it. I'd carry it today. I don't care.
All right. Here's why when you get in the debate of like the best or this is the single greatest sports achievement or the greatest athlete, I always look at it through the lens of my eyes, because I can't talk about Jesse Owens.
Right.
I can't talk about guys who played, Bill Russell and Wilt Chamberlain. I didn't see those guys. I never saw Babe Ruth. So I always, who's the greatest baseball player of all time? I just always default to King Griffey Jr. because I'm like, that's what I watched.
Right.
Like, I can't compare him to Willie Mays. I never saw Willie Mays play. I mean, I read his stats.
Then we shouldn't even be having this debate, really. We should just say, who's the greatest player you've ever seen?
Yeah, that's why
that's what it is, right? Yeah. Like it, and it's almost like, I'm big on ancestry too. I can go down that rabbit hole and look at, generations of but nobody else in my family's into it. And so I start talking about 2 generations ago in Italy, and it's like it never happened to these kids that live in my house. And I'm thinking hey, in 2 generations, I'm gone. Nobody's going to be talking about this show. 2 generations were erased.
I think we're going to make such an impact on society that this will be we'll be putting that little capsule. When they go to Mars, we'll be one of the first things to look back on our time. Okay, let me circle back to the party. Yeah. Big party, lots of people there, right?
That was a big controversy too, because I asked my wife, how many people are coming? I was doing one of those pools, the square pool, 100 squares, right? Yeah. And I went and got some gift cards. I'm the host of the party. I'm the game maker. So I said, how many people are coming over to this party? And my wife says, we have 14 people coming. So I did some math and I said, okay, everybody's going to get 7 squares. We'll make have a couple bonus squares left over.
Right.
Well, first people started showing up, put in 7. And then I started kind of looking around, Puck, and I started going, wait a minute, there's more than 14 people here.
Right.
Turns out my wife didn't tell me that she wasn't counting the 5 people who live in this house. And she was sick. So now I got a square problem. I have to go back with whiteout and be like, hey, you can't have this square. You can't have this square. Caused a big problem. Big problem.
Lots of hens talking, because that's what my party was. I tried to sit in the front so I could just watch the game. A little bit.
Yeah.
I'm there for the game, but then it's just nonstop during the just the entire game. And I just at one point, and then the game was going to get away was pretty quickly. So then I didn't care anymore. Once we got to halftime, but in the first quarter, I'm like, just for the love of God, can you guys just shut up for just a little bit? Because I knew what was going to happen. The second the commercials came on,
right.
Commercials. I'm like, can you guys just find your own room?
Yeah.
Maybe I should just.
You need multiple TVs going, is what you need.
There needs to be a one room that's just for the people that want to watch the game, and then another room for the hens.
I did a dumb thing. I went out the day before and I bought a new TV. I went bigger because I realized I had about 4 inches of space more that I could expand. Yeah. So I was like, you know what? We're wasting 2 inches on this side of the TV and 2 inches. We need a bigger TV. And so we upgraded. And I was that guy standing at the TV store on the day before the Super Bowl.
And we got it all set up and it worked.
Yeah.
I'll see if I did that. There's no way the TV would have worked.
Oh, it worked.
It would have been yelling and screaming, and then my wife.
Oh, there was
the
some
handy
yelling
one.
and screaming.
She would have came in and like, okay, I'll do it, and then she would have done it all.
There was some frustration. It's almost like being on a boat ramp with a boat when you're trying to put the boat in the water.
Nothing worse than that.
Trying to get that TV hung up. Like, I can lift it up. It's like 90 pounds. You're gonna have to attach the bolts in the back. No.
Last summer, 2 summers ago, almost ended a marriage on the boat ramp. Jesus, just yelling and screaming, and that's a study in the human psychology and relationships. Is a boat ramp at 5:30.
Yeah, just go get a lawn chair, set yourself on the boat ramp, have a cool beverage. You're gonna have an enjoyable summer day.
All right. Last week we talked about the media deal. You told us last week, hey, I expect something to happen. The media deal to happen actually before expansion. Look for that first week of the NCAA March Madness. Yeah, we got a separate report, I think, from Front Office Sports that, and again, this probably shouldn't surprise anyone. CBS, Fox, ESPN, they're all interested in the Pac-12. Where do anything change from last week when we last spoke on the Pac-12 media deal? Yeah,
yesterday in the Monday mailbag, I reported that, I talked to a couple of more sources with the Pac-12. I'm just getting more affirmation, Puck, that media piece is very likely to come first. Like, everybody thinks it's going to come first because the media companies have told the Pac-12 it doesn't matter who you add, school 8, school 9, is it UNLV? Is it Texas State? Is it Memphis, Tulane, Nevada, Air Force? Doesn't matter. These are interchangeable. So the feedback that the Pac-12 got was that, hey, these pieces are all interchangeable. So, the media consultants I talk with and obviously the sources of the Pac-12 all sort of say that this points toward a media deal first, then followed shortly after with an expansion announcement. I know the Pac-12 expects something to happen soon. I had an AD who told me yesterday, I'm just paraphrasing, we expect something soon. I had a second source say, yes, it's going to be early spring. So I do still hold to that kind of March Madness, first week of March Madness deadline. I know they'd like to beat it. Maybe they'd like to beat expectations given what the Pac-12 has been through in the last 2 years. But I think that's kind of where they're going. So now the question is, do they take a value proposition like Texas State that really doesn't offer a lot in the way of football brand? It gets you into Texas a little bit, but Texas State might be willing to come for a deep discount. Maybe they don't get media rights distributions in the first couple of years of the deal. Maybe they're paying their way in. I don't know, but there's a bottom line there that has to be considered, especially if you're not going just to 8 football schools. If you're going to 9, could they be number 9? So keep an eye on Texas State as a value add. But I still think the best in the West, everything they said about being the best in the West holds up. Because, if you're going to go down to those AAU, those American Athletic Conference schools, Memphis and Tulane, I think you're looking at big travel expenses for basketball and baseball and everything else that you're going to play. So the question is, can you get them at the right number? I still think UNLV and Nevada would be keep you regional. Keep an eye on Texas State, but I don't think there's any new players here. The fact that the ACC held together with that ESPN deal, I think, kind of shut the chaos factor down to hey, it's just a handful of schools, maybe 5 or 6 schools that are serious contenders here that the Pac-12 would look at. And I was told that the 8 that they have in the room right now, which includes Gonzaga, 7 all sports schools plus Gonzaga doesn't play football. The 8 in the room were the 8 that shared this vision. So they feel like they have everybody in the room that they absolutely needed. Now it's more about options and not targets. I had somebody say that to me yesterday. It's not necessarily targets. It's just options because there's a plan A, a plan B, plan C. Which option do they pick?
Give me the argument. Give me the pros and cons of Texas State. I listened to you and Wilner on your latest podcast discuss Texas State.
Yeah, I don't love Texas State. Wilner is bullish on it. I
know why Wilner's bullish on it because he stumbled across the same video I stumbled across this week about some lake they've got there on campus and watching all the scenery.
Right. The scenery on it's a warm winter day in Texas. Look, it gets you into Texas. and it just gets a toe into Texas, right? It's the pinky toe that you're getting into Texas. You're not coming in getting even an SMU, or certainly not getting one of the big Texas schools, but it gets you into Texas from a recruiting standpoint if you're these schools. Is that important to the schools that are in the room right now? Secondarily, there's a value addition here that you would get Texas State at a reduced exit fee from their conference. Would be a fraction of what these other schools are having to pay to leave. There's a potential here that Texas State is so motivated that, they could take a really low distribution or no distribution in early years of the media deal. So it's not more mouths to feed. It's just more inventory. There's some advantage there, especially, Puck, if you want to go to 9. Like from a scheduling standpoint, if you're at 8 schools, you've got to buy 4 non-conference. You got to find 4 non-conference games. If you're at 9, now you're down to, hey, now we don't need to schedule quite as heavily. So I think that there's a real motivation there to try to get to 9 and not have that extra conference game. Could be a $500,000 payday game that everybody has to pay for to go out and find another opponent. So maybe Texas State from a penciling out standpoint makes a little bit of sense to add as the 9th school, but I don't like them as number 8. But, the cons there are no football brand, very little proof of performance in football. I think from a standpoint of like when you added Gonzaga and Boise State and company, you got a real boost if you're the Pac-12. I think it would be viewed, Texas State would be viewed as less than move by the Pac-12. So I think there's a little bit of a hit to the kind of the brand of the conference if you take them and nobody else. But I think that's the case, pro and con on Texas State. The others, you want me to go into the others?
Sure.
UNLV, look, you're getting Vegas. You're getting a school that is being viewed by the rest of the Mountain West Conference as, gosh, that's going to be the team to beat in the Mountain West Conference if they stay put. And in fact, I talked to one of the other coaches in the Mountain West who said he's kind of secretly and selfishly rooting for UNLV to end up in the Pac-12 because he says it would make my life easier. And he says better for the Mountain West if they stayed, better for me if they go. So I think there's a viewpoint that UNLV, even though they have financial struggles, they've got an NFL stadium, they've got Vegas, where emerging sports market keeps you regional, best of the West. And then I'll also pair in, you wouldn't take Nevada without UNLV, but if it's Nevada and UNLV, now you're really regional. You got a travel partner there. And certainly, Nevada does not have the shine that UNLV has, but you're adding a basketball school to that stable of basketball schools that really make this conference, promising. Memphis and Tulane, you sort of end the conversation about, is anybody else going to get that group of 5 playoff berth if it still exists in the playoff format going forward? If you grab Memphis, I don't even need Tulane for this conversation. If you grab Memphis, you grab a basketball school and a football school that are top 25 in both sports. And so I think from a competition standpoint, Memphis UNLV is your best tandem. Going to cost you the most, though. And I think there's a question about the travel to Memphis for your other sports. Do you take them? And then beyond that, Puck, I think there's a 10th school out there that is a basketball school only. And I'm really looking at St. Mary's and what they're doing in the WCC. They don't have a great gym. Their home gym is, needs upgrades. But Randy Bennett and what St. Mary's has done in the last 5-6 seasons, you take them in a heartbeat. Now you got a basketball product that really sings.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that one. I'm full go there on St. Mary's. Speaking of basketball, what do you make of the schools that left right to the Big Ten, the ACC, and the Big 12? I mean, when you look at the success, it's been really only 3 teams. It's been Arizona, they're in the Big 12. UCLA in the Big Ten, they've righted the ship a little bit. They actually righted the ship after Cronin yelled at everyone, and so they're pretty set in the Big Ten. And then I don't know if it's a surprise, but it's Stanford in the ACC there with Kyle Smith. Why have they found success and then the rest of them have not? I mean, Washington is going to miss the Big Ten tournament. Yeah. There's 15 teams that go to the Big Ten tournament at 18, and they're going to likely miss it. I mean, that's just a massive failure for Danny Sprinkle in Washington. But why's Dana Altman struggled? Why are these other teams struggled so much, but those three have not?
Yeah. Altman's lost 5 in a row, and he's 66 years old, and there's questions about how much longer does he want to coach. I don't think he's going to throw the keys in this season, but I think he has to be looking at I think these are all case by case.
Okay.
And in Oregon's case, I think Dana Altman has been slow to adapt to this world of NIL and the portal, which is really strange to me because he was like at the forefront of transfers early on. He had a roster where he had 8, 9, 10 transfers. I do think it sort of points to Division Street Inc., the collective at Oregon, and makes me wonder about how much money what percentage of their NIL deals are going to football versus men's basketball. Some of these schools have just pointed all their resources towards football because they know that, that's 85% of your value and that's what's going to move the needle. And you want to invest. Any business is going to invest in the thing that's giving them a return on that investment. And so football is providing the biggest return. So you see a lot of schools who are, I think, going all in that way. I think Altman, though, has been slow to get it. He added Tony Stubblefield, his old assistant, who was there with him when they were taking all the transfers. I'm eager to see if that manifests itself. But Dana Altman also does this thing. He does this little rope a dope, right? He lost 5 in a row. He's about to go on I have 6 games left in the season. I think they'll go 6-0 or 5-1 to finish the season. Look at their schedule. Still, it's an underwhelming season because they had some really promising early wins and really, it's Jackson Shellstead, it's Nate Biddle, nobody else on that roster. But that's all.
TJ Bamba.
Yeah,
still playing basketball.
But shooting too many threes. But here's the thing, though. Like, Mick Cronin and UCLA, they can complain all they want, but UCLA is a basketball school, and they're doing what a basketball school should do. Arizona's a basketball school. Right. Stanford's not a football school anymore, and they got Kyle Smith. He's a hell of a coach. So I think you can point to those success stories, and you can. It makes sense to me. The question is, for Washington and Oregon in particular, how much do they want to win in basketball? I had a high-level donor at Oregon tell me this morning that, look, it was a pipe dream to think Oregon could win a national championship in basketball years ago, and Dana Altman got to a Final Four. And the donor said, it looks like that window is closing based on what's happening in the ecosystem. You got the SEC schools pouring some money into basketball. They have more money to spend. The revenue sharing is coming next season. It's going to be real tricky for teams like Oregon and Washington who say, hey, we got to matter in football. I think you're going to see a lot of those other sports drop down in tiers. And the non-revenue generating sports especially. I think you're going to see coaches leave. We've already seen it at Oregon, volleyball coach leaving for Kansas. I think you're going to see coaches leave and go to schools that are investing in those programs because Oregon and Washington have to make some decisions.
I'm not picking on Washington. I'm really not. I think it's the greatest waste of $2 million I've ever seen a program spend on a player in the great Osabor. He's a fine player, but come on. I mean, you think that's buyer's remorse for them? They spent $2 million on a guy that can't lift the team. And they're not even going to make their tournament in the league in which 15 of the 18 make it.
Yeah,
I just hope. I would, and I think Sprinkles is a fine coach. I just think any program's got to take a step back and go, what are we doing here? Why are we investing so much money in players? I mean, I don't take the $2 million and spread it out on the whole team. Yeah. Don't spend it all on one guy.
Yeah, there's a lot of trial and error going on.
Yeah, that's true. Let's go.
There is. It's just early, and the colleges were not equipped to act like NFL organizations or NBA organizations with a salary cap and a GM. They're all hiring that person now. You see it. It's like on a daily basis. You see these schools that are rolling out, we've just hired a director of player personnel or the guy who's going to be in the GM position for the school. But I think it's no different than pro sports. I mean, you see bad investments all the time.
Yeah, fair.
You see NFL teams, NBA teams, Major League Baseball teams sign bad contracts. You're going to have bad contracts in college basketball.
And here's the thing about Osabor, if he were on a team that had better talent around him because of how he can pass and facilitate, he'd be great. He'd be a great addition. Making him the focal point of the team was a mistake.
He's a $500,000 guy, not a $2 million guy, is what you're saying.
Yeah. I want to share something with you, and hopefully it comes across here, and if it doesn't, you're like, hey, you don't know how to work technology. There's a big story up here in Seattle about a fight, well, not a fight, a parent in youth sports. Yeah, color me shocked if you heard this stuff before.
Yeah, I'm already shaking my head.
Got on the ice, and see if you can see this.
Yeah.
You can see the video I'm sharing. A dad came on the ice in a 12U hockey game and ended up shoving, there's the kid on the ground, ended up shoving 2 teenage referees to the ground. Here's the better video. You can see him walking on the ice. He confronted these 2, shoves a 13-year-old and a 14-year-old to the ground. This is a parent of one of the kids on the team. And again, a 12U hockey team, rec league, that this was at the Seattle Kraken ice complex, by the way, because they host all these games. He has been charged. Well, he hasn't been charged yet. He was stopped by police. They found him at leaving at a red light, and they've said, hey, we've got enough probable cause for a misdemeanor assault. Now, I think it's got to be much more than a misdemeanor. And I don't know why this happens, and this isn't unique. This happens in every youth sport. It's why we don't have any more referees anymore.
Yeah.
It's why they're not coming out anymore. I coach two middle school basketball teams. One's a JV team, one's a JVC team, which is essentially just 6th graders. We don't have any referees for the JVC games for 6th grade middle school basketball because they just simply don't want to ref it because of the attitude and the response from parents. I guarantee that's the number one reason. What do you think should happen to this individual?
Well, I think it's a bigger issue, but yeah, this guy should face consequences and not be allowed back into the arena to cheer at a game. And I always just feel like that, we always look to the police and we look to the league to do the policing of this stuff. And yes, when it comes to an assault, or somebody shoving a kid down, you absolutely should be charged. But I feel like there's other parents in the crowd, and I've been at youth sport. My kid played club volleyball, my oldest daughter, and I was sitting by a guy who was a dentist, who is like a normal, rational human being, functional in his job in every other way. And, a 15-year-old girl who was working as like the lines judge missed a call, and he went berserk. And I literally was like, dude, like, come on. Like, that's like your daughter out there. They blew a call. So what? And he was beside himself in a way that I was like, man, like what happens to us in that situation? But I think we have to keep each other accountable too, Puck. Like the other parents that are around this person as he's getting worked up in the stands. If you see someone on your kid's sports team who's lost their way, put your arm around him and be like, dude, come on. Like all of us have seen enough youth sports events to know this is not life and death. Your scholarship is not hanging in the balance. If you're that worked up about it, you shouldn't be inside the venue. You shouldn't be at the Diamond. You shouldn't be at the field. The games would be better without parents there. We all know it. The games would be better. The pressure would be off the kids. There would be no yelling. There'd be no expectations. The parents I saw a case too of a parent who has a kid playing multiple sports who back channeled with like the tournament directors to try to get the game times moved so that their kid could make, both tournaments. And I'm going like, what if we all did that with our, soccer kid that is, playing lacrosse, for example, in our household? Like, we can't be doing this. Like, stop trying to control everything as parents and just recognize that one of the beautiful things about youth sports is it gives our kids a safe place to fail. That is the most valuable thing. It is a safe place to fail. We should not be trying to game the system and control it to have our kid have success and yell at the referee. And when something goes bad in life, blame someone else or walk out on the ice and shove a kid down. Yeah. The truth of the matter is bad things are going to happen, Puck. People die. You lose a job. You have a bad relationship. Bad shit happens. And so at the end of the day, you have to know that this youth sports experiment, the most valuable thing is that kids can build resilience and realize when something bad happens in the game, you get a bad call, something unfair happens. It's not the end of the world. You just back, you overcome it.
Yeah. My first thought was to the kid on the team that his parent, that was his father. and just about how miserable I would imagine those car rides are going home are. That was my first response. Just how miserable that must be.
Yeah.
If you have a parent that does that, what is it like on the car ride home? It's probably hell for that kid.
Yeah, it's not fun. It's not what it's supposed to be. No. And and look, I love like CYO sports where they make the kids and the parents pledge, hey, we're not here for our enjoyment. We're here to kind of. Yeah. There's some truth in that. Like volleyball again. Look, my kid played on a really good club. They won the region. They went to nationals. They were good. All right. She had two players on her team that are playing, Big Ten volleyball now. One at Oregon, one at Washington. Okay. Two players on her club team. At 12 years old, Puck, I could have told you those two kids were going to play D1 volleyball. Like, it didn't matter what any of us did or how much we yelled. And so just get your feet on the ground as a parent. Like, the fact of the matter is that vast majority of these kids are not going to get scholarships. And what they're going to remember is what a jackass you were at the game if you were a parent.
We got two. Let's transition back to college sports. We got two new, the same sport, right? College athletics. We got two new presidents, one at Washington, one at Washington State. What did you learn from the new Washington State president, Elizabeth Cantwell? Do we have a feeling that she's going to be pro sports?
Yeah, I think more than a feeling, because remember I talked to those regents right before Christmas, and they were really mad at Kirk Schultz, the outgoing president. Now his tenure was supposed to end June 30th. Right. He was supposed to go into July, and that was going to be his retirement. And they have fast tracked that. So he is this is going to be an early departure for Schultz, who will move into a consultant role. They've had enough of him. There was questions about, he did not follow their directives and whatnot. So the regents are, they're the ones making the hire. And I actually think that the Schultz behavior benefits Washington State sports fans, because the regents were very focused going into this hiring process on getting somebody who understood sports, who understood the value of it. Of course, the rest of the campus stuff matters, but they understood that this was the front porch of the university and that you can boost enrollment. And all these presidents are worried about enrollment, and they're worried about enrollment in Pullman, that you can boost your enrollment by improving your brand in athletics. It is one of the easiest ways to boost enrollment. And so, one of the trustees, one of the regents told me, we've got to get this right. I had another one tell me she absolutely understands sports. Now, the new president walked into this meeting that they had to introduce her. She was wearing crimson tennis shoes. One of the regents texted me and said, she has crimson tennis shoes on. Like, that's evidence that she's going to be about sports, right? So
because of the tennis shoes.
But everybody's looking for, because this matters in this era. If you don't have a president who understands, that sports are important and that you're going to have to hold off the rest of campus and explain to the law school and explain to the business school that this football thing matters because it will help bring revenue in and gift giving in that fuels everybody. It's going to lift all boats, right?
Yeah.
If you don't have that president, you don't have a chance. And so I do think this is a good hire for Washington State. I think they, no question, feel like they've got somebody who understands sports and will support the mission. They would not have hired her if they didn't hear that in the interview process.
And I would assume the same is for Robert J. Jones, who's the new president of Washington. Yeah. I mean, you think about it. I mean, you do a survey of these kids, that attend, let's just use Washington for an example. How many were swayed because they're watching TV one day and it's a September 15th game and, they're playing USC. Oh, my God, look at that environment.
Yeah.
That looks fun. Oh, they boat to the games. It looks nice there. There's mountains in the background. That's a lake. I think I want to go to school there. Yeah,
it's an advertisement that permeates the corners of our society, and Washington hires a president who's got a background in the Big Ten. I mean, it's
right.
This is not accidental. Oregon did the same thing, and you got a new chancellor at UCLA. You have all this turnover right now, but all of it's pointed in the same direction. One of the regents at Washington State told me that you've got an enrollment issue in Pullman. We need to boost enrollment. We need the regent said, we need more people to say, I choose WSU.
Right.
And the regent said, I cannot separate that from athletics. because they know these things go together. And so I think they know it at Washington. They know it at Washington State. All of these hires are sports flavored, and they didn't used to be.
All right, you had a couple more things and we'll cut you loose. One, you had Max Brown on your show. I think it was last week. He stirred, or a couple, maybe more than that. He stirred the pot with Wazoo fans. Like, people are like, God, what's wrong with you? You becoming like Stephen A. Smith, Max Brown. Are you aware of what he did? He did like his tears.
Yes.
Okay, and I would assume that's why you got him on to talk to him about it. What's he doing? We know Max Brown. I like Max. He played high school football out here. He was a legend at Skyline High School. What is he doing? Is he just trying to be a pot stirrer?
No, I think he was. I think there was some truth in what he was saying, in that, like, hey, look, there are certain tiers within these conferences, and look at. I mean, the Big 12 is a great example. Like, there's just this muddled mess of things, but he did it in a way, I think, that slapped Washington State fans in the face. I mean, it's just I don't think that was necessary. I think he's done a really good job for a guy who was the Gatorade National Player of the Year, 5-star guy. He goes to USC. He plays for, Steve Sarkisian and Helton, and he plays for Lane Kiffin, and, it didn't work out for him. Like, his whole college experience was just this, sort of flop. And he ends up, I think, reinventing himself as a guy who is really self-deprecating on social media and saying, it didn't work out for me. And I find that part of him really charming. I just think he misfired on this. And I think we've all been in that situation where I think his point was the Big 12 doesn't have as many tiers, or the ACC doesn't have as many tiers. Pac-12 was much more tiered back in the day. And you have to remember, he comes at it from being a USC guy who was viewing, himself as the top tier, and the school he was at was a top tier school. He also mentioned in the interview with me that, he talked seriously with Mike Leach, and in hindsight, going to play for Leach might have been the better thing for Max Brown. Like,
well, I mean, my thing is, I would have had Washington. I mean, if we're talking about the history of the conference, Washington's is in top tier. Is one, because I think he only had Oregon and USC. I mean, Washington's in the top tier. And listen, you can't have Arizona above Washington State. You can't. Not in football.
But some of that is
or Arizona State, for that matter.
Some of that is, like, sometimes I find that the players who were immersed in it, they don't have an accurate view of it. They were sold an idea of what the conference was, and it's not the view that I have of the conference.
Hey, he did his job. He stirred the pot. He got people all worked up, and people reacted to it.
Yeah.
All right, last thing for you. You talked to Wilner about this. I think you and I share the same opinion on this one, because we weathered the same storm, I think, a week or two ago, like Snowmageddon, and then it snowed like, I don't know, a half an inch, and then school gets canceled, and then there's a 2-hour delay. Or at least up here, there was a 2-hour delay. Then all the kids got to do work online. Here's my issue with it. And I want to know if you have this issue with it. Yeah. Let the kids have a damn snow day.
I know.
If you're going to have a snow day, let them have a snow day. They should go out and play in the snow, not have to sit and do schoolwork. We're not going to fall behind anybody, all right? They don't do anything online anyways. They're texting their friends left and right. Let them go enjoy it, sled down the hill.
Yeah.
Okay, if there's actually snow. The other thing is, how about a 2-hour delay, and then we'll just wait to see if the snow melts, which it all did. And we've got games canceled for basketball, and I'm looking outside. I'm like, it's sunny and 35. There's not an inch of snow on the ground. Why are we canceling stuff?
Yeah, we don't know how to handle ourselves is the easy answer. We're just lost. And I'll compound it. Look, my wife worked in TV news for 20 years as an anchor and a reporter, and she was that reporter they would send up to, like, Mount Hood on a snowy day, or stick her out at the freeway interstate, when people are getting stuck, and they were always hamming it up, like, you shouldn't be out, and they were always overplaying the Snowmageddon. But we had a Snowmageddon that turned into a No-Mageddon situation that week, because the kids went to bed thinking there was going to be snow. We got a light dusting of snow, and then we got a text from the school district saying school's on, and there will be no delay. And then the kids went to school, and you're right. They had to look out the window at, like, a dusting of snow on the playground. They were not allowed to play in it. I asked my 10-year-old, I said, what's the right call? And she said, the 2-hour delay is the right call, because it allows you to get up in the morning if you're a young kid, go out and do a snow angel in the backyard, and then get your butt to school. And she was mindful of the fact that they add additional days to the school year here when they get a snow day.
Yeah, I know.
So she, a lot of hype, but I lived in Indiana. I lived in Northeast Indiana. I was covering Notre Dame and driving all over South Bend in Indiana. And I was mindful then that I had no idea what real snow was like.
I know.
You just don't. We don't. I go to East Lansing, Michigan.
Oh.
They know what to do when it snows, and they don't cancel school. No, they go right through it. They're prepared. The rest of us are looking around going, it's dusting of snow.
In our defense, like Portland, Seattle, like everything's on a hill. In our defense, in the Midwest, everything's flat. So that's
fine.
Just in our defense. But
we still overreact, and we don't know how to handle ourselves. Let's be real.
Freaked out. All right. It was a lengthy one with you today. John Canzano, BFT on Twitter. Visit johncanzano.com. Was weekly visit brought to you by Zeke's Pizza. What we got something brewing up on the website.
I'm all over right now. The Pac-12 realignment, Pac-12 expansion, media rights. I am all over this stuff right now. So I've got new stuff as it's coming, and I'll always try to share what I know there. And I'm also I've got a special project going on the New World Pac-12 that it's going to launch next week. So tune you in then.
Okay, can't wait. There he is. Check him out on YouTube. When you're there, subscribe to the channel. John Canzano also up on all the podcast platforms, Apple, Spotify, wherever you find your podcast. And, of course, always up at pucksports.com. All right, John, we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, buddy.
There he is, John Canzano, again, joining us earlier today. We taped that this morning, a lengthy one. We covered it all, as I mentioned it before. As we do with John and some other guys, other guests, we'll separate that up on YouTube. So if you just want to watch the John portion, he will be a part of the Daily Puck Drop full show. But if you just want Johnny Cans by himself, that will be up there on YouTube as well. As for the audio podcast of it, we just put the entire Daily Puck Drop up there, all for you to devour, however you like to devour your podcast. All right, before we wrap it up, on a Tuesday edition of the Daily Puck Drop. Of course, we wrap it up with Hey, What the Puck, brought to you by Restoration One of North Seattle, your restoration company that lets you avoid the stress of water, fire, and mold damage with their property restoration services. Locally owned and operated. Make them your first call when those damages affect your residential or commercial property, 206-817-8917, or visit them online at restoration1.com, the North Seattle franchise. Again, apologies when I was playing the video earlier in the show. If it was drowning out, I honestly didn't know it was up. I couldn't hear it. So I don't know what was going on, why I couldn't hear it, but you could hear it. When we played the video of the assault that took place at the Seattle Kraken ice complex of a parent of a 12U hockey player, and the parent assaulted, shoved two referees down, 13 and 14, and that's Hey, What the Puck. I don't know. I don't know how much of it's a bigger problem now in 2025 in today's society, other than maybe we just have more access to see these things and see this type of behavior that happens at youth sporting events now than we ever did before. The cell phone cameras, and now we get to capture all this. When I was growing up, this happened. I mean, we detailed it earlier in the show. I saw it happen when I was playing fifth grade basketball, and but there's just no cameras back then. No one could detail it. Now we get to detail it all. So maybe the perception is it's happening more and more. And again, maybe it actually is happening more and more than it's ever happened before. And there are plenty of parents. I saw Chris Egan, our good friend. We'll talk to Chris about this coming up on Friday. Sent out a message that, hey, again, what transpired this past weekend was awful, but there's plenty of parents that still do it the right way. And I will echo that from Chris, 100%. There are parents who go to the games and behave in a responsible manner, in a way that you should watch these sports. Listen, I get it. We want the best for our kids. We do. And as they get older and they play in more competitive environments in leagues, it gets more and more. But I do believe there is this mentality, and I think maybe is it the rising cost of college, and I think it's Oh my God, I want my kid to get a scholarship. And if they don't get a scholarship, I can't afford college. Maybe it's a part of that. I think it's the specialization of it, the club aspect of sports, which again, I believe is a good thing. I don't believe club sports are bad. My kids have played both, but they've, also played their youth sports, their rec league sports. So I don't think it's bad. I think there's a major positive to club sports. I think it brings out I think there's a more competitive environment for those kids that want it. But I think what happens then is that there's the parents that want that as well. And then when you spend money for some of these club sports, and I'm assuming that's not you're paying money, probably a lot of money for that rec league that's taking place at the Seattle Iceplex or for the Kraken complex. You think you're entitled to talk to coaches a certain way. I think some of these parents feel entitled that they can go out on the ice and ultimately shove two referees down to the ground. Again, I mentioned it earlier and I'll mention again. I mean, it makes it worse for what this parent did at the Kraken Ice Complex, that these were two teenagers. And I'm telling you, this Pacific Northwest Hockey Association and the Kraken themselves are going to have a mess on their hands. Not because of the players and the coaches, because how if you're a parent of one of these referees, these teenagers, what do you say to them? Oh, you can come sign up, you make some money, and you get to be active in refereeing these games. And well, can you protect my son? Like, what are the steps now being done to ensure that this never, ever, ever happens, ever? And as I mentioned before, ultimately 100% of the blame is on the parent that walked onto the ice. I do, though. My question is, something tells me this was brewing. He didn't just snap and go on the ice. It was probably brewing for a bit. I'm just speculating here. Did some parents see this? Did you see it evolving to the point where he opened up a door? First, how does he get the chance? I mean, that's the other thing. How did he opens up the door to walk on the ice. You see that, and the coaches. Where were the coaches there? How does a coach? I don't want to put too much. I don't want to put blame on them, but I would have a question for them. Like, he's walking on the ice. Did you not see that? Like, what was going on? And in the video, and I won't play it again. You can go check it out. That it appears that one coach opens up the door and then closes it, because then he sees the parent coming down on the ice. He doesn't do anything about it. So there's a lot of failures there, and ultimately the failure is on that parent. And I don't think anything should happen to the kid. I don't think the kid should be kicked out of the league. But I do believe, again, that can't just be a misdemeanor. There is just no way that the Seattle Police Department can call that a misdemeanor. That has got to be way more than a misdemeanor. Those are kids that he shoved to the ground. And on top of that, that parent is never allowed to step foot in that complex ever again. That parent should never be able to watch a game again. And I don't care if people think, well, everyone makes a mistake. No. There's a lot of other mistakes that you make that you get second chances. He is to me, that parent has forfeited the right to ever get to watch his son play in a youth league game. And if you think that's too much, I really don't care. I honestly don't. That's how you nip this crap in the butt. That's how you nip this stuff and stop it from ever happening again. You just don't treat it with kid gloves. You don't say, oh, no, you sit out for a year and then next year you can come back. No, you never get to come back ever again. Ever again. Maybe that will just stop some of this behavior. I don't know. Maybe not. That's it for Hey What the Puck. Again, brought to you by Restoration One in North Seattle. Your restoration company lets you avoid the stress of water, fire, and mold damage with their property restoration services. Locally owned and operated. Make them your first call when those damages affect your residential or commercial property. 206-817-8917. Visit them online at restoration1.com, the North Seattle franchise. Thank you for watching and listening today. Thank you to all the sponsors, of course, Limback Lumber, Puck Sports Studios, built by Limback Lumber, Zeke's Pizza for bringing you John Canzano, Georgetown Brewery for our NFL segment with Danny Kelly. Check out their new tavern beer at your local bar and at georgetownbeer.com. And, of course, Restoration One that brings you Hey What the Puck every single day. Today's Daily Puck Drop will be up on YouTube. Please subscribe to the channel there. Also find the Daily Puck Drop on all your favorite podcast platforms as well at pucksports.com. When you're at pucksports.com, please sign up to be a member of the Pucks Posse. $5 a month. That's all it's going to cost you to support all of our free content and VIP content as well, exclusive podcasts like our baseball coverage this year with Ryan Divish of the Seattle Times. And then starting next week, forgot to mention this early, starting next week, our NFL draft coverage with the best in the business, Dane Brugler from The Athletic, the author of The Beast. We will record around 7 shows leading up to the NFL draft, all available to Pucks Posse members. Starting next week, they'll be dropping on Tuesday. Well, next week will go on a Tuesday, and then after that, new episodes, podcast with Dane Brugler from The Athletic, who I believe is the best in the business covering the NFL draft, will drop on Mondays. And again, that available to Pucks Posse members. Check it out. Everything that we do up at pucksports.com. All right. We'll talk to you on, when is tomorrow? Wednesday, that's right. Wednesday, we got Rob Staten. We'll talk more draft coverage with Rob as leading up to the draft. SeahawksDraftBlog.com. Can't get enough draft coverage. Also, speaking of our baseball coverage, Ryan Divish, who is making his way down to Peoria as we speak. We'll talk to Divish tomorrow, get the very latest with the Seattle Mariners as spring training gets underway. We'll talk to you tomorrow. As always, I promise to be better.
No shoes, no ties.
Would anybody like to smoke some pot?
Yeah.
I was born to love you. I was born to lick your face. I was born to rub you. But you were born to rub me first.
What do you need my address for?
We'd like to send out a mailer.
Mother of mercy, I don't speak Japanese!